evening. I'm Tanya Wright, and welcome to You and Your Money. This evening, we'll be speaking with Sam Duncombe and Romi Ferreira of Save the Bays. Tonight, we're going to be focusing on the activities surrounding Clifton Bay. But before we do that, let me invite Sam, you to start, to tell us a little bit about Save the Bays, the organization, and what it stands for.
Okay, well, Save the Bays is essentially a coalition of environmental groups in the Bahamas and the U.S. at the moment that is focusing on environmental issues in the Bahamas. And it's really an exciting proposition because it's the first time in the history of our country that we've had all of the environmental groups, or most of the environmental groups, come on board to support a core group of initiatives, which are passing a Freedom of Information Act, an Environmental Protection Act, looking at unregulated development, fishing. There's more.
Well, let's talk about some of your partners then, Romi.
Well, I mean, remember that Save the Bays is an umbrella organization. And there are a number of organizations that come under it. And what is happening, though, is that in our country, when we look at development, there are these great land giveaways that are done in secret. There are these secret developments, and we only hear about it when it is thrust on us. And the law requires that they have public consultation, and they ignore this. And so what we're saying is that from 1987, we were supposed to enact these bits of legislation. It is 2013, and yet government after government, including this one, refuses even to take the subject seriously, and yet these developments are thrust on the people, and in a lot of cases it marginalizes people. It blocks off large swaths of land and access to beach for the ordinary man. And this is just on the environmental protection side. When you look at the Freedom of Information Act, think of how many times you could have a young person arrested on a Thursday before Good Friday, spend the night, well, the 4 nights in jail, come out Tuesday with a various assortment of bruises, and you can't get the information from the police, you can't get it from the hospital. These things are fundamental to a democracy. And all we're saying is, what about us? What about the people? Don't the people count in this equation?
Well, let's talk about the people, because over the past few years, we've seen coalitions get together and be very, very vocal and have some modicum of success in agitating for either changes or a project to stop or the government to reconsider. Are you saying that with this legislation now, we can be more proactive rather than reactive? What would actually be the teeth that would be given to organizations like yours with the legislation that Romi is suggesting?
Well, the reality is legislation exists right now under the Subdivisions and Plannings Act that require the government to hold public consultation on all developments. And that is not being done. Every day we hear this development's going through, that development's going through. It ends up that you are caught halfway through a developmental process where the damage to the environment is possibly already done, the beach is taken away, dug through, and people cannot access the beach freely. So these are issues that essentially affect the ordinary Bahamian on a very fundamental level. If you can't know, for example, that a development is going to cut your beach in half and that you will no longer have access to that beach, when for thousands of years Bahamians have been able to walk on that beach, it's a little bit distressing in 2013 that we are still fighting the very same issues we fought 14 years ago to save Clifton in the original
Well, what
instance.
You're talking about, though, must be a breakdown in process, because there is the Best Commission, there is procedure that need to be followed. Why is it, apart from the want of legislation that will allow you the access to information, this is a small country, and we all know what's happening when it's happening. There has,
No, we don't.
but there's also a process that would should bring about more
Sure.
transparency. Is that process not being followed?
The process is being abused by those who seek to keep power to themselves. It's being abused. As Sam pointed out, and rightly so, we not only have statute law, we have case law that says the people ought to be consulted for developments of over a certain tier. This is enshrined in the rules regarding environmental impact assessment. And I have to say this. I have been conducting environmental impact assessments for over 23 years. 23. The rules there are very clear. Developments over a certain size, the public must be consulted. And you have developments time and time again that are thrust on the people. Whether it was Albany, the approval was already given in Albany before you had the public consultation. That makes no sense because the law also states that you have to have the consultation before the approval to take into account the views of the public instead of having the development thrust on them. So you have the people in Eleuthera at Lighthouse Point, they're saying, well, hold on, we weren't consulted. This is a huge development that's going to impact our way of life. You have the people in Bimini that are crying for this oversized development that threatens their marine park, that threatens to shut off half the island from the people that actually live there. Feeding someone and buying them lunch isn't public consultation.
All right, well,
having a Junkanoo parade is not public consultation.
I hear you on that. Let's stop right there.
Okay.
You spoke about the legislation and the law that exists. Let's take a look when we come back at what is actually happening in terms of enforcing those laws, such as they are, on the books today. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking with Romi Ferreira and Sam Duncombe of Save the Bays. Romi, you were just letting us have it in terms of what the environment needs for better protection, what it is we do in fact have, and you made reference to abuses. You want to take it up from there?
Yeah, and well, abuses go on continually. And one of the reasons why this whole Save the Bays precipitated at Clifton Bay is because Clifton Bay represents the development pressure which all the bays in the country are under. And when we say bays, I want the Bahamian people to understand that from an ecological point of view, the entire country is nothing but coastline. All we have is our coastline. What the office of the Prime Minister, when he's talking about investments, he's talking about giving away large tracts of our coastline. And what happens inevitably is beach access to the public is denied. People tend to do what they want to do. There's no enforcement. And all of that's happening at Clifton Bay. And so you have at Clifton Bay development pressure from the residential community, you have the oil companies, you have the hotel development and marina at Albany, you have recreational divers, you have people that rely on that area to fish for food. And so all of this is happening in a vacuum. And I was very disturbed to look at the newspaper to see that the government branded that as foolishness. That's very disturbing. It is very disturbing to know that they regard issues surrounding sustainable development, the voice of the people, as foolishness. And it saddens me a great deal.
I'm glad you brought that up, and Sam, you might agree as well. What is portrayed in the media, the conversations at the table, seems to have relegated this whole Clifton discussion as just an internal fight between private individuals. What's really at stake here is what's ours and what should be near and dear to us, as Romi alluded to.
Well, I think that, you know, for the comments from Mr. Christie saying that the fight is foolishness. It's so far from foolishness. It's, you know, and it underscores, I think, the attitude that this government has toward the environment, that it's not taken seriously. When, you know, when you look at all the advertising we do for the Bahamas, all it shows is these spectacular images of our country. And, you know, that's how we promote our country. And in the same breath, what we're doing is allowing development to totally destroy that pristine beauty. Developers come here and say, wow, what a beautiful place this is, and then they go and trash it. They make it into whatever their image of beauty is. We do not have any respect for our environment as a country, in my opinion.
On all levels?
On too many levels. Okay. And in particular, as the government needs to step up to the plate and take a lead action in terms of promoting that respect and making people understand that without our environment, we cannot survive. We cannot survive without clean water. This government and the last government allowed Albany to put a golf course on top of the country's largest this island's largest water lens. You're talking about hundreds of gallons of pollutants literally seeping into the ground and poisoning our water supply. And that was given an okay. They were allowed to cut through the beach. At Clifton, you know, people are allowed to put up groins and, you know, accrete sand onto their property, essentially doubling the size of the property. These are things that are happening all over the country.
So we're not actually talking about people, their use of their own private land. This is an encroachment on
Us.
Crown land, Bahamian land. Is that correct?
This is actually an affront to our sovereignty, because all Crown land, all the seabed belongs to the government. You can't just go and do what you want to do. Some people are of the view that they can, but the ordinary citizen can't. There are repercussions for that. But, you know, I want to turn again to this whole conversation. Whenever government figures speak about the environment and speak about the voices of the people, I go back 5 generations in this country, okay? So when you start to talk about what we have to say is foolishness, that you're not listening to us, that all that says is that you've already made up your mind. And this is the whole substance of our application for judicial review in relation to this matter. Because you cannot make a decision as a government that you will take no decision. The power is vested in you to regulate development. You can't lay back and say, and stick my head in the sand and say, well, I don't know.
Well, let's be a little more clear on that. Is there an application, or was there an application before the government that they failed to make a decision on, and what's the basis of that that application?
The basis of our application is for judicial review, and leave was granted for it, and I'll say no more in that process. But the basis of it is that the government took no action. They are vested with this power. See, this raises interesting questions. Why would the government take no action? Why would they say this is foolishness? Why would they sit on their hands while all of this is happening? Right now, oil is being released into the ocean at Clifton Bay. Right now, there's unregulated development going on at Clifton Bay. Right now, the beach at Jaws Beach is eroded and denuded. That's happening right now at Clifton Bay. As Sam indicated, right now, the largest water lens in New Providence, water being the most precious commodity on this planet, is being destroyed and poisoned. These things are happening right now. So to call it foolishness is almost to say that this is not happening. It makes me wonder, well, what world are you in? Are you with us?
Well, I can tell you, I think we can invite the Bahamian public to join in that discussion. You have a website. I think it's savethebays.org. I've been on it, and there is a wealth of information out there. Letting people know exactly what's going on, because otherwise than that, and your fantastic marketing, you think that this doesn't concern you. Well, it's about what somebody's doing on their property, or maybe it's an internal squabble between persons behind the gate. So I think
that part of the problem is that, you know, when you look at even our harbor, Nassau Harbor, does it look dirty? No. It looks like this beautiful blue water, and we keep associating this, what we see around us, as unpolluted. And that is so far from the truth. The reality is that at Clifton, with all the oil spills that are going on, that are documented with photographs and video, that there is oil in the water at Clifton. People need to understand on a very fundamental level that when you pollute the water, the oil goes into the coral reefs. It smothers the reefs, it soaks into sponges. Fish on that reef start eating the sponges. The bigger fish eat the smaller fish. We eat the big fish. Guess who's getting the oil at the end of the day? We are. And well, exactly. We, the people of the Bahamas, who rely on a clean marine environment, because we do get a big part of our protein from our ocean, is being totally trashed at Clifton. right? And, you know, look at Clifton and then look at every offloading station that accepts oil all through the islands, and you have all that problem going on. You have runoff that goes into the marine environment from our roads, from development, when they denude the land, when they remove every single tree on that land and it rains, all of that washes into the sea. That smothers the reefs as well. So we're compounding problem after problem. You know, when we talk about drilling for oil, for example, we can't even handle what's happening at Clifton, which is literally an hour's drive away from town. And yet we want to allow a company to drill for oil in the middle of nowhere that takes 24 hours to get to by boat. Who's going to monitor them?
With regulations that are either absent or have been developed in secret. I think that Bahamians need to wake up and realize that we are being dispossessed of the things that we treasure and the things that we have, and it's happening right in front of your eyes. And anytime anyone says anything about it, you're either an F&M or a PLP, so they seek to divide us. No, I'm serious. They seek to divide us on that line, or you're a Bahamian or non-Bahamian. And you know what? The foreigners come here, they see the divisions within us, and they exploit those divisions. Meanwhile, while they give away large tracts of our land, while they do that, you, my friend, all of us, are being dispossessed of that land. You're going to be denied the access to it. They're not concerned about you. They have all these wonderful photo opportunities. Sure, them and their friends can go, but the average Bahamian can't. And this is what I'm saying, and I've devoted my adult life to this.
We have to stop you there, but when we come back, I want you to make sure that the Bahamian people understand that this is not an anti-development campaign.
No.
Is it?
It's not.
We'll be right back.
It's not.
Welcome back to You and Your Money. Our guests tonight, Sam Duncombe and Romi Ferreira of Save the Bays. Before we wrapped up the last segment, I challenged Romi and Sam to talk down the notion that Save the Bays is anti-development.
No, it's absolutely not anti-development. And I know every time an environmental group opens their mouth against a development, it's always, oh, you all don't want any development, you all want us to go back to a fishing village. That's absolute nonsense. We all benefit from the modern society. Right. It would be very difficult to go back, but there's certainly a way forward that we can develop within the boundaries of what our country and our islands, because islands are very, very fragile, what we can and cannot do. And if we can, we already have set out that we can't destroy mangroves. We need to look at the overall scheme of things. We need to identify areas in the Bahamas that really need to be off limits. And when a development comes to town, it needs to be brought to the public, because you know what? Somebody in Long Island, Eleuthera, whatever, has knowledge about that area that somebody in Nassau does not have. And they need to bring that knowledge forward and talk to the developers and the government about what's there, so that that area can be developed in a specific way, in according to the limits of the land they're talking about development. If we just go hog wild and flatten land wherever we want, fill in wetlands, fill in ponds, we're not doing us a service, and we're certainly not doing the developer a service in the long run. And if we run up into a developer every time there's an issue, that's going to look bad too.
Get a bad
so
name.
Why don't we come together as a country and realize that together we can plan really well how we go forward with respect to the environment, respect to the developers, and respect to ourselves.
Well, you spoke about the person on Long Island who knows so much more than you or I, or the person in Andros or any of the other islands. How do we get persons like that to join in your efforts until, I guess, the legislation works its way to its passage and having the effect we wanted?
Yeah, firstly, I want, for too long we have actually prostituted ourselves as a nation in terms of giving developers what they want under this guise of jobs. So you come and you say, well, I'm going to give you 300 jobs or 500 or whatever the number may be, or 2. And you say, okay, thank you so much. And now you can just go and do what you want to do. This isn't anti-development. This is sustainable development. all of us inherited these Bahama Islands from our forefathers and our forebears. We got it in some sort of reasonable state. But what state are we going to leave it in? Are we going to leave a Bahama land that's so polluted that nobody wants to come here? Are we going to leave a Bahama land where 3/4 of the country is behind a gate and you can't go to it? That all the, I was going to say Negroes, but let's just say natives, non-foreigners, are just locked in the center? We want the government to follow the rule of law. We want the public consultation when it calls for it. These developers understand following the rules when it comes to environment because
Yes, they have to follow it in
exactly
their country.
in their hometown.
Yes.
They follow it. So why in the world you come to the Bahamas and you want to break these rules? And the reason why is because our politicians let them get away with it. And what we're saying, well, look, you know, in this country it's inevitable. It comes down to leadership. And obviously, if our leaders regard this as foolishness, we can expect no better. So I invite all Bahamian citizens, sign the petition. This is an opportunity for us to affect meaningful change in this country and to let these people know who lead us that, hey, you're doing foolishness. You need to take into account sustainable development. We're not talking foolishness. It's you who doing foolishness.
Well, we can
sign the petition, savethebays.org.
We can find that petition at savethebays.com. I think you go online and you download it, or
You can find it online.
And you have to download it and sign it, or you can.
No, it opens to a site where all
Okay.
you have to do is
We're
put in
heading
your
for
information.
5,000 signatures.
All right.
So that's 5,000 like-minded people. All of us can't be fools.
Well, hopefully we're going to double at least that
course.
before the effort
People
is complete.
power.
People power. You're right.
Absolutely.
And you know, there's power in the word, and you have to make sure and get it out there. And I think that it's important that we have this discussion with our
think so.
nation,
I think so.
and speak directly to. You've spoken directly to a number of people, and Sam, you were able to balance that with your message to persons like myself and the person in Eleuthera and Harbor Island, and Andres, who know that when there is a proposed development coming to their island, they have to really assist and be the watchdog to make sure that they can notify us or even assist, because it's not only whistleblowing, it's
no.
assist.